Ashley Christman is amazing. She is a mom with her wife to a beautiful 5-year-old. She is a cancer thriver. She is the subject of a movie, and she's also participated in a second movie that is now doing the film festival circuit that highlights the benefits of surf therapy. Our conversation goes all kinds of different places, and you're going to love every single second. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited today. I have the opportunity to be chatting with Ashley Christman. Welcome, Ashley. Please tell everyone who you are and about the members of your family.
Hello, and thank you for having me, Sam. I'm really happy to be on the show with you. My name is Ashley Christman. I am a retired Marine officer, United States Marine officer, recently retired. And I have a wife, Melissa, and a son, Archer. And we are living in the DC area, Northern Virginia, and just kind of enjoying life.
Now, you have a son, Archer. How old's Archer?
Archer's 5. He's about to be 6 soon, which is, as all parents know of young children, happens so fast. Hard to believe.
It's so true. It's so true. Now, can we talk a little bit about, I guess first, let's talk about how did you and Melissa meet?
Well, Melissa, as I said, is also a Marine officer, and it's just kind of one of those things where you kind of meet in the line of what we do. And we both were stationed in Quantico, Virginia together for a short period of time, worked together for a bit, and had a friendship develop. And then after a couple months, kind of realized that maybe there was something a little bit more than friendship there.
That. And so you meet, friendship, start dating. How long were you together before you realized this is the person for me? I'm in it with both feet, and maybe we should talk about having a child someday.
Well, that's a really great question. It's funny because I was, gosh, how old was I when we finally were getting married? I think I was about 32 when we met. And yeah, I was 32 when we met, 33 when we got married. And it actually happened pretty fast. And it's funny because I think it's like they say, when you know, you know. And
Hmm.
also I was older and having being a lesbian who had been dating for 10 and 15 years and not having in mind that marriage was really an option for me.
Yeah.
Then when I met somebody that I thought, wow, this is my person,
Yeah.
it just was easy. It was easy to just know that it was the right decision. And so we were friends for probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and then started dating. Um, which I was really surprised at that she was interested. She took me by surprise. I did not know that she was interested in women at the time, even let alone interested in me. So it was a very pleasant surprise. And then we dated for 6 or 8 months, and then got engaged. And we got married another 6 or 8 months after that, and we've just been taking on life together ever since. So.
And you really have. You really have been taken on life. Not
Oh,
not
yeah.
the least of which was to create another life.
Yes, yes. We certainly had some special challenges along the way, and I know that we're going to get into that. But one of those challenges was the fact that we were dual active duty. Being a dual active duty family, gay or straight, I think is incredibly challenging. And then for us, we we got married literally, I think, just a matter of weeks after the Defense of Marriage Act was repealed. We got engaged well before the Defense of Marriage Act was repealed, and we were like, hey, this is what we want to do. We want to get married, and whether or not everybody else, legally recognizes it or not, what matters is that we're committing ourselves to each other.
Hmm.
And so we we got married, and it was just, things just happened so quickly. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. I met her, I think, like 8 months later. Uh, and then, we got engaged, the following February of 2013. Then we got married in August of 2013. And the Defense of Marriage Act, I think, was repealed in July of 2013. And so I mean, it was just huge that everything happened that way. And then turned out that when I had to execute orders and move to North Carolina, when I checked in to Camp Lejeune, um, we check into the trying to think. I have to think through acronyms here. For
Hmm.
military acronyms, we speak in acronyms. So we checked into the IPAC, the Administration Center,
Mm.
and it's a centralized personnel administration center that, regardless of the unit you're going to, you check in there. And I checked in there, and found out years later that I was the first same-sex married couple to check in. And I had the most hilarious situation, kind of check in, kind of awkward conversations. And I'm like, I don't really understand why this is so awkward right now. That they had to run my marriage certificate on file, and had some funny conversations. And so anyways, yeah, so small bit of history. First same-sex couple to check in to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, in the United States Marine Corps. But history that now might mean something different here. So,
Oh,
so
yes.
anyways, yeah. But yeah, so we got married, and we had talked about, while we were dating, we had talked about children, about our desires to have children. And I've always wanted kids. I've always, hoped to have kids someday. Melissa was not really kind of on the same plane with that. But when we were dating, I think she might have unintentionally led me to believe she wanted kids a little bit more than she actually wanted to. But I think she was really just kind of open to the idea, because
Sure.
also she felt like she had found her person. But um, we got married, and it kind of, as things do, came to light that maybe she wasn't as interested in having kids as I had believed that she was. And so a few years went by, and I said, okay, well, I think that we should preserve our options.
Mhm.
And so, it's kind of where things started with the journey for us. And we were married for I think 5 years or so, without, you know, trying for children or anything to that nature. And so which I think was really important too, because we built a solid foundation on our
Mhm.
relationship first. Um, but but yeah, it's been the adventure.
So you decide you are going to actually take that step to have a family. Now, in the queer community, great, you may have eggs, you may have uteruses, but you're missing pieces of the puzzle that need to be found to create the process for you. How did you go about making the decision about using a donor? Were you able to find someone that you knew? Did you go through an agency? How did the two of you navigate that?
Let me back up a step and tell you first off how Melissa informed me really that she was ready to have kids, because that kind of leads into what we did next as far as figuring out, how we were going to do that and the donors and what have you. Um, so I think it was in 2016 we got orders suddenly, which were unexpected. We weren't supposed to get orders. We were supposed to be staying. We'd actually just moved to new units in North Carolina, and we got orders because of where she was at in her promotion cycle. They move us around to have different experiences and at different points in your career path. And she got orders to Bahrain. And because we were married, yeah, going to the Middle East as a same-sex couple is not, something that you necessarily have in mind. But since we were married, my monitor, the officer that gives orders, called me up and said, "Hey, look, she's a year senior to you, and so she's getting orders. So you're getting orders, and you're in follow mode." And I said, "Okay, I just executed orders 2 months ago, but I guess we're going to be moving. Where are we going?" And he says, "You're going to Bahrain." And I said, "What?" And at the time, I was yeah, I was then 36, and it's like, man, I am getting old.
Hmm.
And we could, depending on how they write the orders, if they give us orders as a married couple, and we were kind of in transition as to what the duty station was considered at the time, meaning that if they gave us orders as a couple, then we could have been over there for 3 years. Or if they give us orders as a couple in a different way, it could have been 2 years. And if they give us orders individually to the same place at the same time, then it would be 1 year orders. And that's ultimately what they elected to do, I think, because of timing of where we were at in our careers and wanting us to go to school the following year. So we both ended up getting orders for 1 year. But before that, I had decided, like, man, I'm only getting older, as we all do. and I'm kind of in a key time. And I told Melissa, I said, I gotta freeze my eggs. And she initially was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know. I don't know if we want to have kids. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I said, honey, it's okay. Like, I literally just want to preserve our options. We're just going to do this to preserve our options.
Hmm.
There's, no expectation. She says, well, what if we don't use them? I said, well, we'll figure that out when it's time to figure it out, and I said, but if you decide you're in for it, and you want to have kids, and and then I'm too old, then we've just lost an opportunity. And
Right.
so we went ahead and went through the procedure to freeze my eggs. And I had, it's interesting because as same-sex couples, we go into fertility treatments or processes or retrievals or what have you for other reasons, right? It's not
Mhm.
usually because of fertility challenges or known fertility challenges. It's just because we don't have all the elements we need, as
Yeah.
you have mentioned. So so we went in and I did an oocyte retrieval. And the first attempt, and we're on a timeline, mind you, because we have to move by a certain date.
Right.
And so this is, um, you know, we got to hit the milestones because
Yep.
we're gonna run out of time. And so we go in and we do the retrieval, and I think the trigger shot was not administered at the right time because uh, they tested my blood work in the morning, and then we were, on call all day waiting for the phone to ring for the results. And I think that they got the results later, and they did not call right away.
Oh.
And when the nurse called, finally, she was kind of in a panic, like, "You got to do it right now. You got to do it right now." And so we did the trigger shot, and ultimately we went in for the retrieval, I think the next day, and got 0 eggs. So it was really, really disappointing,
Yeah.
and surprising. I mean, we were kind of like, oh, this is not at all what we expected,
Hmm.
uh, when they had, checked and counted the um, potential number of eggs that we were going to retrieve. I think they counted something like 17 or 19, and it looks like, yeah, and it's surprising, but there's an interesting twist in this story. And so we think what happened is that I dumped them all before they were able to retrieve them, which is just, heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Um, So we went right back into the cycle for the next month. And so I did two back to back, which was just
Wow.
really, yeah, it just really a lot for my body.
Hmm.
Um, and and then the next time around we got 6 eggs. So, not a lot, but usually I think if you are trying to purchase eggs from an egg donor, they usually come in groups of 6. So we were told that that's still a decent number to go for the procedure with if we decided to use them in the future. So yes,
Excellent. So you freeze your eggs
freeze the
and
eggs.
move to
So freeze the
Bahrain.
eggs, and we moved to Bahrain. Um, Spend a year in Bahrain. We come back and go to school for 2 years. We both went to school for 1 year, and then I went to school for a second year. I got selected for another program. And so just studying. I read something like 30,000 pages in those 2 years. And so I was just eyeball deep in homework assignments and reading. And, I'm at home. I come home one day and turn right to reading, and Melissa comes in and she says, "Hey, can you fill this paperwork out when you get a break?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. Just set it over there, and I'll take care of it when I'm done here." So I took a break from reading, and I pick up the paperwork, and I'm reading through, and I'm starting to fill it out, and I'm like, what is this?" Like flipping through the pages, like are we are we having a baby? What's going on? What is this? What am I looking at? And she had brought home all the paperwork, and I walk out like, honey, what is going on? And she's like, well, I mean, I kind of thought it was a good time. And I was like, so is that a yes? Are we having a baby? I joke that I'm still waiting for her to tell me that she's decided that we're going to have a child. She's still thinking about it, but I was like, all right, I'm in. I'm not going to ask too many questions. Let's do it, man.
Yep.
It was, so that was funny. Always the practical one, like, oh, it's good timing. It's very good timing,
We'll
Melissa.
do it now. We'll do it now.
Yeah, so we'll do it now. And I said, okay, yeah, it's good timing. So that's how she told me. And then we went on the search to find a donor, and kind of like, wow, how do you go about that? And it was really, if I'm just completely, honest about it, it was really kind of awkward at first, because it felt like I was shopping for a human.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, have you heard many
Oh,
couples
that's how yeah, a
talk about it in
lot of
that
people
way?
talk about it like that. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. And so then we had to stop and really talk about, okay, so how do we go about this? So first off, we did find two donor banks that were very reputable, and one of them was actually in Virginia, where we were living at the time. One of them was in California, and so um, the sperm would have to be shipped in, couriered in by special courier and what have you, which was fine too. But and both of them offered extended genetic testing, and we were interested in that. And so, uh, we figured out the kind of logistics of it first, and then we figured out kind of spiritually um, and personally, how do you go about selecting a donor?
Hmm.
And what we did is we talked about a lot of things. We talked about natural selection. We talked about, if we were both heterosexual, um, then we would pick somebody that we were compatible with to be in a relationship, like you would
Hmm.
in any relationship, right? And that's how we would procreate. So we should probably look for somebody that we feel like we would both be compatible with, not just looking at a donor in the way of traits, that you
Hmm.
might think are desirable, because I think we all learn as we age what we think we want in life and what we actually want or need in life, or what is actually complements us, might be different things, right? So, um, and we've probably all had the friend or family member, somebody in our lives who embarks on partnerships, kind of looking at like a checklist of
Hmm.
traits that they're looking for, and that never really works out for them.
Yeah.
But again, I think with maturity and age and time, you kind of figure that's not what you need, right?
Yeah.
And so, anyways, so it's kind of how we went about looking for a donor is again looking for somebody that we would be compatible with, that we had things in common with, that we felt like our personalities um, would really connect with. And so it was important for us to use a donor bank that provided either videos or voice recording interviews and things like that, so you could get a better sense of the person, because how
Right.
somebody looks on paper and how they are when you can kind of sense and feel them and hear their conversation and their thought process and their emotion
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
is different. You get a spiritual sense of who they are. And so that's what we looked at when we were looking for a donor. And it was really kind of it was like it was like going on it was like speed dating. It's kind of like which was a whole nother um layer of the experience, so we would only look at two or three a night when we would sit down and we would listen to the interviews and look over all the details of their history and their profile and the information that was provided. And then we would kind of marinate and think about it. And then we'd look at another two or three another night. So yeah.
And then you found one
Yeah.
and chose to use that one. And so once you got through the testing and the 5 days and everything else, how many embryos were you left with? Still six?
So we had the six, and but one it was like five and a half.
Okay.
Because one of them was a little immature, but they said that they go ahead and freeze it, because then once they take them out of cryo and they do the thawing process, that one might have a chance to mature still. So we went for that, but that one did not end up maturing. So then we were down to five. I think we had another one that also did not survive the thawing process. So then we were down to four. And then we had, they went ahead and fertilized them to grow the embryos. And I think one of them was failure to thrive, did not grow. And so then we were down to three. And it's like, man,
Yeah.
the odds are not ever in our favor, right? I mean, this
Right.
is, a million and one. But so, we got down to three, but we had to. They grade them. The embryologist assigns a grade to them, and so she said, "Okay, here are the three grades." And she says, "These two right here are the ones that I'm most interested in." And she said, "This one is right on target and is exactly where I think it would be in timeline." And I give it like a solid B plus. And she said, "This one right here," she said, "this is a beautiful clumpy." She called it clumpy. This is a beautiful clumpy. A little bit slower, but he'll come in his own time. He'll get there. And but she's like, "But I like A plus. I give this one an A plus, but it's a little bit behind the timeline of where I would think it would be in the development." Um, and we're talking about the rate at how quickly cells divide at this point, right? So,
Yeah.
um, and so that was interesting. And I'm like, "Oh man, okay." And so Melissa and I are looking at each other, and we're looking at her, and we're like, "Okay, so now what?" And she says, "Well, which one do you want?" And we're like, "Oh, we
Oh.
we have to choose. Like, we have to choose the clumpy. Oh my gosh!" I mean, it was just the pressure. We
Yep.
had to, it was insane. And I mean, and you think about that on a whole nother level, and you're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like the chances, because what if it stops dividing or thriving, or what if and the other one thrives, but we didn't choose that one, or whatever. You
Yep.
just don't know. And so we went for it and we selected one, and we selected, the one that she said, this is an A plus, this is a beautiful clumpy.
Yep.
Okay, okay, we'll go with that one. Um, and and we did the procedure, and so Melissa carried the pregnancy, and
Okay.
the oocyte was mine, but Melissa carried the pregnancy. And that was our way of both being part of bringing life to the
Sure.
baby, to the child, and being, really involved in the process. And initially, our plan was that we would have, two, and in hopes that I would potentially carry one was my hope. But I think Melissa, she was always pretty clear once she decided that she wanted to have kids, that she would prefer that she carried them both, because she was a little bit concerned about me carrying them, because I'm about 4.5 years older than her, not a huge difference, but
Nope.
enough at that age range to have a little bit of concern.
Yeah.
And so she preferred that she carried them. And then also I had a little bit of health issues at the time that were kind of sporadic, that we didn't quite understand. And so she was just kind of her instinct was like, I don't know about you being pregnant, because I'm just concerned about your health too, and how you would handle that. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's fair, because we don't really understand why I'm having these weird issues. And so anyhow, but the plan was to have two. So we were also gonna freeze the other two, but what they do is the next couple days they let them continue to develop to a certain point, and then they would put them back into cryo. But unfortunately, the other ones did not survive.
Oh,
This was the only one that survived, and Melissa went through the procedure, and it was a viable pregnancy, and we have a beautiful baby boy from it. So
wow.
really, the odds of that are just
Yeah.
incredible.
When you look at all of the steps that you have to take and the consideration and even when you've got a B plus, you think, how do people actually get pregnant when they don't use all of the reproductive technology that's available?
I mean, it's just wild.
It is.
But you think about, if you think about how many times people are intimate versus how many times they
Sure.
actually get pregnant, then you kind of think, oh, okay,
Okay,
well,
maybe.
maybe
Yeah.
the math makes a little bit more sense now.
Yeah.
Uh, and obviously there are a lot of people who use protection
Sure.
or other means, birth control, but there are also a lot of people who do not.
Yeah.
Um, and timing is everything as well, when it comes to getting pregnant, in a heterosexual couple, right?
Yeah.
But in addition to that, just the odds of our son Archer coming to be, I mean, just everything to bring him into this world. And there's a part of the story that I didn't get to yet. That's not the part that I think you think I'm going to get to, but
Oh,
it has to do with transporting the eggs, right? So I froze the eggs in North Carolina,
right.
and we put them into storage in North Carolina. Our sperm donor that we selected, the sperm was actually stored in California.
Okay.
And
See, I
because
just assumed you went with like Fairfax or something because it's kind of down the road, but
Yeah, and we kind of hoped that we were gonna find one, because we could have just went to pick it up and not had to pay a special courier. But we were open to making sure that we found the right donor instead
sure.
of the convenient option or the checklist, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we tried to approach it from a very spiritual way. Um, excuse me. So the sperm was in California, the eggs were in North Carolina, and we were in Northern Virginia. And so, Northern Virginia, right on the edge of DC, we actually did the procedure in Bethesda, in Maryland. So, because DC area, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to get it all picked up and special couriered in. So the sperm was shipped in to Maryland, and to the clinic. And then a special courier had to go over by name with, their special equipment and pick up the eggs in North Carolina. However, the day the courier arrived, there was a hurricane happening,
Okay.
and the power went out in the cryo bank. And so all the eggs were on backup generators, and they couldn't open anything because they couldn't lose any temperature.
Right.
So the courier had to go away and come back another day. And we were like, oh my gosh, we've got this scheduled. We've got to get the eggs up here. And so we're like, of course, of course, it's a one in a, I don't know, 1 in a billion
Sure.
odds
Sure.
to get the child that you have with the egg and the sperm matching and selecting and thriving and reproducing cells and becoming a fetus and all of the things that
Hmm.
happens. It's just so beautiful with life coming to be. And now we are also up against a hurricane and other things, right? And health challenges, right? So anyways, the courier goes back the next day, and we're like, oh, please, please let these eggs survive this hurricane.
Yeah.
And they do,
Yeah.
obviously, and they get transported up to Bethesda. But just wild. Like before he was even an embryo, he had to survive,
Hurricane.
coast to coast travel and hurricanes, and I'm just like, what on earth, so it's just wild. But yeah, so then we do the procedure, and then in hindsight we had a lot of interesting revelations about our health journey, and Melissa's wise intuition as to why I should not carry the pregnancy as well. So
Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. I don't know about you, but I love being able to support queer business wherever possible. Here are 10 of the businesses I've connected with over the last couple of years. The first is Conscious Leadership Academy, and you can find them at lauriesolpizio.com, littlebondco.com, birthmarksupport.com, everydonation.com, fertilitylawcanada.com, understorycafe.com, heygaddies.com, gwkacademy.org, informedfertility.ca, and knifeyspoony.com. To learn more and visit these websites, check out the bottom of the show notes over all of the episodes in the coming weeks. And that is a segue, though, because as you're navigating the excitement that comes with the idea of creating a family and becoming the parent you've dreamed about, you are also navigating feeling not yourself and knowing that there's something not quite right, asking for medical guidance, support, help, and feeling, I think, based on what I've learned from you and from watching one of your films, like you almost beating your head against the wall. I know something's not right. Someone has to listen to me because I need help. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I need help. So can you go into that? How do you, first of all, you navigated it all and you're here now and you're telling your story. So, I mean, so grateful for that. But how do you keep your hopes up and not kind of get caught up in all of that and stay positive for the fact that you're becoming a parent? Like, that's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. I mean, it's so much. And I guess one of the things I did not say in my introduction is, hi, my name is Ashley Christman, and I am a cancer thriver. So which maybe should be something I am saying more often up front, because I am. So I have a rare cancer. It's called neuroendocrine cancer. It's about 1% of cancers in America. Um, there are certainly cancers that are a lot more rare, but there are many like it. But this one is mine, as the Marines say about our rifles. But um, but yeah, so we did not know. We did not know that I had neuroendocrine cancer because it has a collection. For some people, it's very asymptomatic, and it's very slow growing. So you can have it for quite a while before actually getting a diagnosis. And for others, it's symptomatic, but they are symptoms that don't really necessarily make sense with each other. They don't necessarily paint a picture together until they paint the picture that they are so random that they are related, which is what happened for me. And uh, so I was having a lot of different symptoms. I was having gastrointestinal symptoms. I would break out in hives when I would run. I would get wheezing sometimes that looked like exercise-induced asthma, but I knew I didn't have asthma because then once I would, try inhalers or something, it would make it worse, which is just, it was strange.
Mhm.
All of this made sense later once we found out what was actually going on. I also was getting pain, but it was intermittent, that it would come and go, and I would get abdominal pain, I would get nausea, I would get various symptoms. And I was met with a lot of dismissiveness in medicine for various reasons, and one of them is neuroendocrine cancer is just really difficult to diagnose to begin with.
Mhm.
Another one I think has to do with a little bit of bias. And then, another one I think has to do with culture, and both, culture in military medicine and probably culture in American medicine in general. But what do I mean by that is, in military medicine, we don't, the the primary demographic that our providers see are like 18 to 24-year-old adults who are physically active, right?
Mhm.
Which for most of them means that they're physically fit, but not necessarily all of them, because they're, different levels of sedentary lifestyles, even within military services. Um, Also, in medical school, and I think that this might be more of a not unique to American medicine, but I think probably um, more global. The idea of the phrase, "When you hear the sound of hooves, think horses, not zebras." Medical students are taught to not look for the rare.
Yep.
And I think they're taught so from this conservative approach of, look, we don't want to go running down rabbit holes. We don't want to stress out our patients. And I can tell you how many times I heard this phrase. Oh, well, that's just an incidental finding. Like,
Mhm.
incidental findings don't mean anything. Well, incidentally, that finding is cancer
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I would call that maybe a lucky finding if it were found early,
Mhm.
um, not something that's insignificant, which is the implication of the phrase an incidental finding. Um, but um, but anyhow, um, you know, during the bringing it back to the pregnancy piece, and just, I guess pre-pregnancy, just becoming parents and the process that is for LGBTQ families. Um, when we did the egg retrieval, the day that we went, the day before we went for the retrieval on the first attempt, Melissa and I went for a walk, and it was like the only time that neither of us brought our phone. She doesn't like to bring her phone a lot of places if she doesn't have to, and so usually I'm the one. And I either didn't have it or my battery was dead, one of the two. But we went for a walk, and it was just we just went around the track outside because I wasn't supposed to do any running or anything, because you could get ovarian torsion
Yeah.
uh, when you're on all the hormones and such. Um, and we started to walk, and I started to have this reaction in my feet, of all things, where
Okay.
they got really red and really itchy, and I started to feel like extremely fatigued. And so we ducked into the nearest building and sat down in the air conditioning for a while. I was like, man, I don't know what that was. And it just was like I was out of breath, and I thought I was going to pass out. And it passed. And I was like, man, it was kind of hot out. So I thought, maybe I was just getting a little overheated, and I might be a little bit more sensitive because of the hormones. And she's like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right. Let's go for a walk." So we went back out, and we got down to the track, and we're walking around the track. And we weren't, walking for exercise. We were just walking to be outside. So it wasn't like we were working hard. But all of a sudden, I looked at her and I said, I'm going down. And she said, what? And I said, I'm going down. And I said, call 911. And I blacked out and I hit the
Wow.
ground and I could hear her and I was like semi-conscious. And I remember thinking to myself, just keep breathing, keep breathing. You have to keep breathing. And like hearing myself breathe and trying to feel, being mindful of feeling my chest rising and falling. And that if I just kept breathing, it would keep my heart going.
Hmm.
I had this level of consciousness, but I was in like complete black, you know? And I could hear Melissa's feet and I could hear her yelling and running across the field because we're walking, you know, on a track that was like around a football field.
Hmm.
And before I had blacked out, there was probably like 4 people in this entire area. And she was sprinting towards one of them, yelling, I need to use your phone. Please call 911. Please call 911. And they called 911 and then I could feel her back next to me. And so anyways, couple years later, what we found out, you know, so first the paramedics were kind of a little bit blasé about it. And they're like, you know, you're on these hormones. You're probably just having some sensitivity to the hormones, and you probably just need to go back and rest and call your doctor. And so we are like, oh, okay, this is, seemed a little bit more serious than that. But they didn't take me to the hospital because by the time they got there, I had recovered. I was sitting up at least and able to talk and everything. But several years later, what we realized and what we found out is that what happened on that day was a carcinoid crisis,
Oh,
which is something that can happen if you have carcinoid syndrome, which is a syndrome that happens in about 10 to 20% of neuroendocrine cancer patients.
wow.
And that was 2016. I didn't get my diagnosis until 2021. And I had had cancer for at least 10 years at the time that I got my diagnosis, which, you know, was an estimate based off some biological studies that were done at the cellular level at NIH. So anyhow, it's just really fascinating. So we had quite a bit of challenges. So we're dual active duty. Dual officer, and I have cancer, and it's an incurable cancer. So it's something that I will just live with until golden age of medicine catches up and finds a cure, or until it's just not managed anymore. So
Hmm.
um, we are taking it on one day at a time, just like parenting.
Right. And you do. And you are
Yes.
taking it on, though. You are raising awareness. You are speaking publicly so that people can learn more about your story and that reminder to always be vigilant about yourself and your care and advocating for yourself. You talk about, first of all, as we're recording, Ashley's just home from jet setting at a film premiere. Because, first of all, I didn't even know that there were film festivals for films that aren't on the big screen necessarily.
Right.
That part was new for me, and I loved learning that. But what is the impetus behind advocating for yourself and doing these films and getting into the film industry to be able to share this more widely than just doctor to doctor or person that you meet on the street kind of thing, like getting that word out there?
Yeah, you know, I can't really take credit for it. Meaning there are 2 films. One of them is The Commitment to Courage, the Ashley Christman story, and it's available on YouTube. And that was a film that was actually done by the Carcinoid Cancer Foundation in conjunction with LACNETS, which is now they have kind of merged together as the Neuroendocrine Cancer Foundation. And they asked me to tell my story, and it's not something that I pursued, but it kind of came about because of really one failure after another. So I got my diagnosis, and then we moved cross country from the Washington, D.C. area where we were both stationed in the Pentagon to Southern California. And, you know, we moved like 10 days after I was diagnosed with cancer with a 10-month-old baby
Wow.
uh, during a pandemic. And I it just when you say all these things out loud, it's just kind of like this, if this were a narrative full feature film, people would be like, oh, that's not real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no, no, this is real. I'm telling you, I got the evidence. But anyways, we moved cross country and we we check in, we get settled, and we get into our house. And in my first like 60 days, I go to every specialist I could possibly get into that I had anything light up on my dotatate 68, gallium 68 scan. That is, one of the few scans that you can actually see neuroendocrine cancer on because it does not show up on a regular PET scan.
Okay.
And my body lit up like a Christmas tree. So I went to like every specialist to make sure that we weren't complacent and that, all of this was neuroendocrine cancer and that there wasn't something else that was gonna, flank me and ambush me and then I was gonna die from something else that we were negating because we got complacent with what we thought we knew. And I ran every route down to try and understand it the best I could. So in that process, I got an oncologist in military medicine, and turns out that with a rare cancer, you don't want to just have an oncologist. You need to have a subspecialist, especially with neuroendocrine cancer. It's incredibly important that you have a neuroendocrine cancer specialist because there's so much misunderstanding about this rare cancer. Now I think we've actually graduated in the last year to an uncommon cancer because our detection rates have increased a bit. But I did not know this. I didn't know this in the first year. So my whole first year, we believed, once I started systemic therapy, I started injections once a month, and just kind of continued working, continued training, was preparing for deployment, working in a very stressful environment. And my oncologist believed that the cancer was stabilized. Well, turns out that there was a scan that probably was not administered properly, and then also results that were not read properly. And because of that, the interpretation was that the cancer was stabilized when in reality it was not. It continued to grow, it continued to progress, and then it continued to move to a new region of my body. It jumped to bone, and so now I have bone metastasis as well. And we found this out around close to the 1 year mark. We found out in April of 23 that it had actually continued to grow that entire time. And so at that point, I was on a warpath to find out, okay, what do I do? Because we've got to get this to stop. And an agreement my wife and I had after the diagnosis came about was that so long as it's manageable, so long as we think it's stabilized, then I would continue to serve. And if anything, and that I would continue to just pursue my career. But if anything indicated that doing so was not in line with what was best for my health, then I would stop and I would just full fight the cancer.
Right.
But initially, everything, well, not initially, because initially we didn't get much information at all. The medical community was very hesitant to give us any sort of prognosis. The prognosis was a prognosis called guarded. I said, well, what does guarded mean? And I had to look it up. And the definition of the prognosis guarded is we don't have enough information to know either way how this is going to go. And I'm like, why is that even a term?
Yeah.
Why don't you just say, I don't know?
Yeah.
So prognosis guarded. And so, a year goes by and things have metastasized, and we made the decision that I need to stop and just fight the cancer. I dug into research, and then got connected with, at the time, the organization was called LACNets, as I stated earlier, and learned a lot from them. And I joined a weekly support group, and it was kind of more than a support group. It was more like crowdsourcing cancer, treatment, support, solutions, information, experiences.
Hmm.
And we, as a community, were really kind of putting this puzzle together
Hmm.
as a tribe, and understanding what works, what doesn't, what we keep hearing that doesn't seem to be resonating with us as patients. And I Hands down, the Neuroendocrine Cancer Foundation's weekly support group has been the best one that I've joined because of the way that it's facilitated,
Hmm.
and because of the willingness of patients and caregivers that join that group to just talk so transparently about what they're experiencing, and respectfully. It's not,
Yeah.
nobody's blaming or demonizing. It's all about being solutions focused. So
Right.
that's really what the impetus to the film was. And they asked me, from my involvement in that. And then I started kind of, providing peer mentorship and peer support, one-on-one to other patients as well, because I had experienced quite a bit in my medical journey, and my conversations with specialists, and kind of understanding the challenges of our providers, the things that they have to face to give us the
Yeah.
care that we need. I mean, man, are they under resourced and over
Sure.
demand in their time? And it is not easy, especially dealing with a rare cancer. And so I really wanted to bridge that gap and help patients who are just completely frustrated understand how to have a better conversation, a more meaningful conversation with their providers,
Hmm.
and to help providers who sometimes can't have the candid conversations that they want to with their patients understand how things are happening and going with their patients, and on a different level.
Yeah.
And so I've looked for opportunities to do that in different speaking engagements and what have you. But the film, was really just our way of sharing our story more broadly. I was really honored and humbled to be asked to do so. And so we did that with the Commitment to Courage. And then separately, another organization reached out that I was working with, for surf therapy, because I think holistic medicine is so important.
Hmm.
If we look at cancer therapy or cancer treatment or any treatment, any medical treatment, if we only look at it from the biological standpoint, I think we're missing. We're
Right.
missing a big piece of the puzzle. And so part of what I did during my cancer, during the worst years of my cancer battle so far, was ocean therapy. And this organization, the Jimmy Miller Memorial Foundation, in Southern California. Um, they have multiple sites. They work with a lot of different communities at this point: military, wounded warriors, first responders, nurses, different, children, and different, just various communities that need support in a different way, and that also give to so many others.
Hmm.
But they do it they do surfing from an adaptive sports approach, and so really they can get anybody. I mean, anybody out on a surfboard, and it is just beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing. But I did surf therapy with them for, I think, like 2 years, 2 or 3 years. And it was incredible. One session of that was worth, like, 30 sessions of talk therapy, from
Right.
the way that you felt when you walked away from it. And we talked very openly about our experiences and our challenges in the circles there. And there's a filmmaker who reached out to them who wanted to do a film on the healing effects of the ocean. And Nancy Miller, the founder of the Jimmy Miller Memorial Foundation, called me up and said, "Hey, look, would you be willing to tell your story? And we'd really be honored if you would do that for us." And so, as any wise spouse does, my first thing was, I asked my wife's permission.
Sure.
And
Sure. Yeah. Because it
so
affects everybody.
that's right. And so she understood, and she also thinks the world of Nancy Miller and JMMF, and we decided that it was something we needed to do. So we did so. And so that the impetus of both films were, just being provided an opportunity to hopefully reach out and help others who were going through struggles like ours, and wanting to do so. Any chance that I get that I could possibly, help somebody else and maybe ease their path or help them find their way a little bit easier than what we did. I hope that we're able to do that.
I love that. And there will be links in the show notes on where people can learn more about the films, about the organizations that you've mentioned, because
Yeah.
it is a lot for people. And I don't want, if you're driving, please don't be trying to write all this information down. Just go to the show notes afterwards and you'll find everything. But it is so invaluable to know that there are, because we hear about, I mean, all that you've talked about is really powerful. What I especially love about the idea of the ocean therapy or the surf therapy is that we hear so frequently people talk about talk therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy and somatic
Yeah.
breathing and all of these things. And that's not to take away from any of the therapies that are out there, but sometimes some of those don't necessarily hit the way we need them to hit to help us navigate our journeys. And so when
Oh
we
yeah.
can learn something new that can be truly powerful, for me, water is my safe space. When I'm stressed out, I go sit at the water's edge and look out over the body of water. I've done that my whole life, having grown up on big bodies of water, which has been lucky. So I can see the value of this. Now, the bodies of water I've grown up on are not big enough for me to go surfing. We think that 3 foot swells are big waves, so it's not going to get us very far,
Those
but
those are big for me.
are they?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
Perfect.
think that
Two,
it's
2 foot's
powerful.
perfect, man.
There you go. There you go. Well, and it's choppy. If it's 3 foot, it's choppy.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you get back to your day, but before I say thank you and everything else, I want to finish as I do with all parents that are on the show by asking you, what is your very favorite part of parenting Archer?
Oh wow. That is such a it's a multifaceted answer, right? But it's such a profound answer, or profound question, I guess. It's a very profound question. I feel so much with him, and I think, you know, I don't know if it's that way with all parents, because I think because of some of the challenges that we've faced, uh, I am fortunate enough to be, kind of in the moment a bit more than a lot of people are. And I say that because I am definitely in the moment more than I used to be.
Hmm. Hmm.
But when you realize how precious time is, and I literally, in 2023, I willed myself to live like 3 times is what it felt like from how close I was, because I almost expired 3 times that year. So my favorite part of parenting Archer is really, I think, just watching him grow from day to day and
Hmm.
watching him become the person that he is, and having those small moments where you realize as a parent, like, wow,
Yeah.
he's different now.
Yeah.
He just changed. He's a different person today
Yeah.
than he was yesterday,
Yeah.
and um and we do this thing at dinner time where we every day we practice gratefulness at dinner time.
Hmm.
And each of us go around the table and mention at least one thing that we're grateful for. It can be from that day. If you had a hard day and it's just kind of in general, it can be in general, that's fine. Or you can have 8 things.
Yeah.
And then we also we talk about the hardest part of our day and the best part of our day. And we were doing that last night, and I looked at him and I said, "Honey, I'm so proud of you." And he looked at me and he said, "Me too." And I said, "You too what?" And he said, "I'm really proud of you." And I said, "Oh, you are?" And he said, "Mm-hmm." And I said, "Well, what for?" Because I'm thinking, like, does he really know what that means? Because now
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. And he said, "I'm proud of you because you retired and because now you can do even more things with me."
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh." and just kind of realizing, I mean, my God, did that make my heart melt, and make me teary-eyed. But just realizing that it was one of those moments where, like, wow, he's got a much better grasp on things that are going on around us than I think that we give, 5-year-olds credit for, 6-year-olds credit for.
Yeah.
And that he was a different person today than he was yesterday. And I'm just, so proud of watching him become the person that he's becoming. It's my favorite part, just watching him grow, watching him develop, watching his
Yeah.
character, watching his personality, watching his thought process, and realizing that I think to a certain degree that he also has a special sense of um, how precious time is,
Yeah.
in his own way at that
Yeah.
age. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's probably my favorite part. But yeah, I don't know. I should say, so the two films, the titles are The Commitment to Courage, the Ashley Christmas story, and that's on YouTube. The other film is Forward, directed by Alex Luxinger, and it's only available in the film festival circuit right now. We're kind of in the beginning of our film festival circuit. It's an independent film, and the indie film circuits are just incredible communities of artists and filmmakers. Man, it's just such a healing space for me to be in as I'm transitioning from active duty military. But a film festival run lasts somewhere between 18 and 24 months. So the hope is that it gets picked up for distribution. So we'll see if it's available in the future. Then I'll let you know if it gets out somewhere in distribution. Otherwise, you can follow on my Linktree or my Instagram for the film, or at ABC_Traveler1 are the two Instagram sites, at Forward the Film or at ABC_Traveler1. And I'll put updates out on there, both with my cancer journey and with the film and what film festivals that it's available for. So
Perfect. Thank you. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and to share your story with myself and my listeners. It's been truly an honor to listen to your inspiration. Thank you.
thank you, Sam.
As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable paths and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.